What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, the hater, up in the space. It's Monday night. I'm outside. Haven't taken my NyQuil yet, so that could only mean one thing. Monday Night Raw review, Hater Outdoors. Let's get to it. So this episode can only be categorized under one category, reasonably, and that is the category of filler TV. So let's put on our filler goggles and go on a ride as we go over this episode segment by segment like we're prone to do. All right, so the show opens up with a recap of what happened on Friday, right? On Fridays, the show opens up with a recap of what happened on Mondays and vice versa, right? Because nothing actually happens to warrant the show starting out in an exciting manner. The shows over the years have started out in more and more boring ways. You know, AEW thinks they have the answer to this by starting out with a boring 45-minute match, but the real answer is it's somewhere in between. It sure as shit doesn't need to open up with a 25-minute match featuring Daniel Garcia, nor does it need to open up with Sami Zayn walking to the arena, or whatever the hell they choose next week, you know what I'm saying? Somewhere in the middle would work, right? How about the fireworks go off, and then you see Lillian Garcia in the ring, and she says something like, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Triple H." And Triple H comes out with like DX, you know what I'm saying, back in the day, cuts a promo, and then one of his opponents comes out, usually The Rock or something like that. They cut a promo against him. This leads to some sort of match that night, right? Maybe it's like The Rock versus Road Dogg or something, right? And you have something to look forward to. This doesn't happen anymore, but it is what it is. Pardon me, cuts. Jey Uso comes out and cuts a typical Jey Uso promo. I mean, nothing to see here. He just does his thing, right? Jimmy Uso comes out and cuts a Jimmy Uso promo, meaning that they both say the same exact things. Nobody cares at all. For some reason, Jimmy Uso comes out here to tell Jey Uso basically that, hey, if you come by on Friday, like, we'll have the same conversation we're having now, but with Roman Reigns. Why not just have Roman Reigns there already? The answer, as I'm being told by my fans, is that they're now taping SmackDown like 2 weeks at a time, right? So they already taped next week's of SmackDown, so like they had Roman Reigns there. They're not going to have him fly all the way to wherever the fuck they are today. Hershey, horrible crowd, by the way, right? So that's why. But this is just like bad planning, if you ask me. But whatever, right? That's how they went with it. Jey Uso says, "Yeet, I'll be there." Great. So basically this whole promo, the opening segment of Raw, was a scheduling, right? Jey Uso scheduled what he's going to do next week. Fantastic. Why the fuck do I care about this, right? Why doesn't this happen backstage? But whatever. What can you do, right? The bloodline comes out. The new bloodline comes out, obviously, and they attack them. But the Usos are better than them now, so they whoop their ass, right? Very strange, very odd, right? When the bloodline attacked Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso, they couldn't fight back. But with Jey Uso, they fight back. So whatever, right? It's like, why does Roman Reigns need anybody? If the Usos can fight back against the bloodline, then how strong is the bloodline, right? The Usos were the same people that were running away from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for like years. But whatever, you know, I'm not here to ask the questions now, cucks. First match of the night, Sheamus versus Ludwig Kaiser. This is a continuation of a feud that started like 4 months ago, then stopped, and now is starting again. Sheamus wins. During the match, the announcers point out that Sheamus has been around for 15 years. This prompts your boy to pull out his phone and to see how long Sami Zayn has been there. 11 years, it turns out. Let that sink in for a little bit. In 15 years, Sheamus is a multiple-time world champion. He's won the Rumble. He's main evented, well, not really main evented, but he's been in title matches for the world title at WrestleMania. He's won the King of the Ring. He's won the Money in the Bank. Sami Zayn is a 4-time Intercontinental Champion. He's been there 11 years. You know, The Undertaker, by contrast to both, when he was there 10 years, he was already like a legend. You know what I mean? Sheamus is a Hall of Famer, but he's barely won by my standards, right? Obviously, Sheamus wins, bro kick, who cares, right? Next up, we've got Zelina Vega versus Ivy Nile. This might be the worst match I've ever seen in my life. Ivy Nile just doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. Ivy Nile is like a small girl who is like basically a fitness model, right? And she thinks she's like an athlete. It's the strangest thing ever, right? It's like, I know girls like this. You know, back in the day when the hater did boxing in college, there were a lot of girls that would roll up in boxing that were just, they were like basically a bunch of Ivy Niles, right? They lifted some weights in high school and college, and then they really got it in their minds that they're like athletes, and then they couldn't do anything, but they felt like they could. It was very strange, right? So I know a lot of Ivy Nile type broads, but Ivy Nile just doesn't have an athletic bone in her body in terms of wrestling, that is, right? She's just not good at it. Zelina Vega is even worse. Zelina Vega can't even run against the ropes. Like this girl, it's like, I feel like if I had one match in wrestling, I would be better than Zelina Vega. You know what I mean? Like, I think she brings nothing to the table. Zelina Vega is like one of the worst wrestlers of all time. I don't understand how this girl even has a job still. Good for her. She did some good character work, I suppose, at Puerto Rico when, she started crying for no reason, right? Even though she sucks at a fake sport. But whatever, right? Zelina Vega, I don't have anything against her conceptually, but it's just this match was just atrocious, right? These girls are so uncoordinated, and it's like, at this point, people need to realize this is just basically a charity case, right? The fact that people allow women to wrestle on TV, largely, there are a few exceptions, and if you're good, you're good. I don't care about gender at all. But realistically speaking, it's a charity case, right? It's like if Zelina Vega was a guy, like if she had the same skills as a guy, no way she'd have a job. Zero chance, motherfuckers. Zero chance. Same thing with Ivy Nile, right? The standard for women is so low, and that's why you can never have like a real woman superstar. There might be an exception, maybe a Becky Lynch in her prime or something like that. But nobody cares because they're not entertaining, right? And then they're also not good in the ring. But lo and behold, cucks, the hater is an equal opportunity hater, and I got more to say about this in a little bit, right? After this, before we get to the next point that I want to make, we have a Seth Rollins boring promo. He comes out dressed like a goof, right? And basically he starts saying like, there's a monster in me. There's a monster inside everybody here. I had completely forgotten that Seth Rollins had like a stint where he was this sadistic guy under like the Monday Night Messiah. He's like, but this feels good. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, you're so boring. You know what I mean? Seth Rollins is just boring as shit. It's been like 6 months since WrestleMania. He's done fucking nothing. He's literally done nothing since WrestleMania except have a boring-ass match against Damian Priest. Nobody cares at all about Seth Rollins. It's 6 months of his career just down the toilet, doing nothing, right? Bronson Reed shows up on the Titantron and he's like, I'm out here in the parking lot, come get me, right? This sounded pretty impassioned. I really enjoyed the way he said this. Seth Rollins goes out there, they brawl a little bit. Rollins, long story short, does a stomp from like one of the boxes that they have like hanging around backstage onto the hood of a car. And like Joe Tessitore can't get enough of it. And he's like, oh, Bronson, it's a hood ornament. Oh, he's been made into a hood ornament. He says the phrase hood ornament like 5 times. It's very annoying. Basically, then Seth Rollins, for some reason, gets in front of the camera and says, I told you that I could do it. I told you not to mess with me. Like, I don't know, why is he doing this? You know what I mean? Who doubted him? Who's he talking to, right? You just stomped the guy's head in, and now he's talking to the camera as if he's talking to somebody. You know what I mean? He's like, I told you I could. I'm Seth Rollins. I'm the future of this company. I told you I could, right? She's doing this for like 3 minutes, and then Bronson Reed eventually gets up, and people are like, oh my God, how did he get up? I don't know. He got superpowers now that he's a heel, you know what I'm saying? So basically he gets up, they brawl some more, they end up in the back of a truck. Bronson Reed does a Death Valley driver off the truck onto like, essentially like a set of tables, right? But under the tables there's clearly like those like soft pads, so like nobody got hurt, but then Adam Pearce, as usual, comes out late and he's like, oh my God, bring up medical. And I'm like, oh God, whatever, right? Bronson Reed wins the brawl. Basically, later on in the night, I'll skip forward a little bit, we're told that Seth Rollins is in the hospital recovering. So basically, he didn't do anything. He came, he talked some shit, got his ass beat. Why the hell would I get behind Seth Rollins, who's probably going to win the match because of the shit booking that WWE has nowadays. But anyways, after this, we have another worst match of the year candidate, right? The War Raiders, also known as the War Jobbers, versus the LWO, which is Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee, and the New Day, right? Now, first of all, the War Raiders, I can't get behind this. I can't get behind the fact that just because they're not the Viking Raiders anymore, doesn't mean anything, Some people are like, oh, it's good that they dropped the Viking gimmick. They're still called Eric and Ivar, right? Ivar is a Viking name. If you want to make them just a regular generic ass tag team, like AOP, call them what they are, Raymond Rowe and Hansel, or Hansen, whatever the fuck his name is, right? Whatever, they're still Eric and Ivar, they still do Viking shit. They still come out with the runes. Anyways, this match just goes on for like a fucking eternity. This crowd is so dead today. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Maybe I was listening to it in low volume, but the crowd just didn't seem into it at all. Not just this match, but into anything. It was just so bad. And during this match, you really, really realize how shit some of these wrestlers are, right? Obviously, Rey Mysterio is an excellent wrestler. He's by far the best wrestler in this match, even now, right? Prime Rey Mysterio, he's better than all these guys combined, right? During any Kofi Kingston match that I watch, I'm always reminded at how bad Kofi Kingston literally is at the in-ring stuff. He's got to be out there as one of the worst in-ring guys of all time. Like Kofi Kingston, first of all, 90% of his moves look like shit, right? It's like his moves are so unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like he does these like, he tries to do these like Shelton Benjamin-esque moves, but he doesn't have like the athleticism of a Shelton Benjamin or of like a Nathan Frazier or an AJ Styles. He just doesn't have it, right? So he tries to, but he thinks he does. It's very, very interesting. Kofi Kingston thinks he's like this great athlete. So he tries to do these like springboard type moves, and he like almost nearly botches them, or they look like shit. So for example, he'll do like a springboard, like basically like a tomahawk chop, right? So he just goes there, and then he just like is flying, and he doesn't do the chop until he lands, right? He doesn't like, the fact that he did a springboard is completely neutralized by the way he carried out the move. Meanwhile, the guy is not expecting this, so he starts falling backwards, right? Kofi Kingston, everything he does just looks stupid. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like these things would never work in real life in any capacity. Like the SOS, right? Like, and Rey Mysterio basically had to go into the SOS and just wait there like an idiot while Kofi Kingston sets it up. It's a complicated move, right? If you've seen someone do it in like Japan, where they invented the move, the Ranhai it's called in Japan, right? It looks so smooth. It's like a one-step move. Kofi Kingston like sets it up, gets behind the guy, gets the leg, then cranks it backwards and then flips forward. And he botches it every time, right? Kofi Kingston is just complete shit in the ring. Like, he's not good at all, you know? I like him because this awkwardness makes it feel realistic, and I like Kofi Kingston for other reasons. Like the fact that he's been there for 20 years, and he's, you know, quite frankly, like, he's done everything that he's been asked to do, so I do like Kofi Kingston. Xavier Woods is more sound in the ring, but he's also more boring. So he doesn't entertain me at all. Dragon Lee, like, he's just like, he's, you know, obviously another one of these, like, the future of Lucha Libre. We've been hearing this for like 20 years, literally. 20 years, literally. They're like, oh, there's no room for Rey Mysterio, I don't think, because Del Rio's here, and then Del Rio's like, gets imprisoned or whatever happened to him, he gets arrested. Rey Mysterio's still like doing it. You know, oh, Kalisto's here, like Rey Mysterio's laughed everybody, right? Dragon Lee is just like he's less exciting than all the guys that I just mentioned. Like if you look at like Sin Cara and Dragon Lee, it's like Sin Cara is more exciting. Dragon Lee was cool, like in you know, like New Japan, I think he was. He did well there, right? I'd seen him before. He did some cool moves, but now he doesn't do any of those moves. Now he just does like double stomps. You know, I'm tired of these like double stomp wrestlers, you know what I mean? Like the same way that you have the Samoan moveset, where like it's mandatory that the Samoan has the ass, you know, like the running ass of the corner attack. Like it's mandatory that the Hispanic wrestlers have some version of the Meteora. You know, it's like they all do the Meteora. It's like, dude, it's a shit move. Enough of the Meteora. I'm sick of it, you know? But anyways, the only one that stood out in this match was Rey Mysterio. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how shit Raymond Rowe is, or Eric, from the Viking Raiders. Hanson, he's got something there because he's a big motherfucker. He's like 350 pounds, big boy, who can do springboard moves. That's something we've never seen before. And it's like a real thing we've never seen before. It's not like Keith Lee or Samoa Joe where they do these like mildly athletic moves, or like Jacob Fatu, who's like 130 pounds less than Ivar, right? And he does like a whisper in the wind, and we have to pretend that it's like, you know, the coolest thing in the world, right? Like Ivar does like springboard corkscrew clotheslines. You know, I do like him, but Raymond Rowe, this guy just looked like shit, man. I don't know what it was about him. He just looked like this idiot, like this bumbling fool. Like he's like kind of out of shape, and he's just like there just getting his ass beat. There was a spot where he's sitting on the top turnbuckle for like forever, while like Rey Mysterio is not part of this part of the move, but like while Dragon Lee and like someone else, I forget who, maybe Xavier Woods, they're trying to do like a Tower of Doom type situation. And it's like this, it just takes a fucking eternity. And these three morons are just standing there, right? They're just like in the corner just waiting to do something, but nothing's getting done because they're so uncoordinated. Almost to the level of fucking Zelina Vega and whoever the fuck she wrestled earlier that I forgot right now, right? Ivy Nile. They're almost at that level. Then Mysterio comes in, tags one of them, turns it into a Hurricane Rana. Right, he's like, oh shit, the fans are bored looking at Ivar just like sitting there in the top turnbuckle like a fucking idiot. The match ends when Chad Gable interferes, grabs Rey Mysterio's ankle in a pretty cool fashion, and then the Viking Raiders, even though they have a new finishing move, they decide to do another move today to finish this because it's a triple threat. The match was a colossal disaster, right? And perhaps even worse, there was a part where Rey Mysterio wanted Dragon Lee to do a 619. No. You do not bequeath your move to this fucking jobber. Dragon Lee's not going to be here in 3 years. In 3 years, Dragon Lee will be in AEW, if they're still around, called Lee the Dragon. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he can be in a tag team with Lee Moriarty and Lee Johnson. They could be the three Lees. You know what I mean? Like, you don't bequeath that move to him. You know what I'm saying? No. Dragon Lee is not the successor to Rey Mysterio. Absolutely not. I would have liked to see Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee win the match so that they could go and wrestle the Lucha Bros, but they can still do that, I guess. So I don't care. Nothing really happened here. It wasn't a big deal, but nobody cared. Next up, we see The Miz trying to get out of the Final Testament. This was like a segment that reoccurred in various ways. R-Truth beats him up a little bit, but laughs around. He sees Butch walking around backstage. He's like, hey, Butch, where's Pete? So you know that Pete Dunne is a complete jobber now. But anyways, long story short, The Miz is trying to get out of it, and Karrion Kross says, you have to go find out what Bo Dallas wants, or I'm going to break your legs. Man, this whole break your legs thing, like, it just really deflated me. Just like my tone just went down now, it deflated me. But I'm going to make an entire video on this. But long story short, it just really pissed me off to see how far The Miz has fallen. But this definitely merits its own video, which might even be a mega rant or like a meso rant. Not a mini rant, not a mega rant, somewhere in the middle. But anyways, I didn't like this at all. But I also didn't like the fact that there was absolutely no resolution to it, right? It happened, but it didn't get resolved. So we have to wait till next week for Miz to approach Bo Dallas and get humiliated. But what can you do? That is what that is. You know what I mean? Adam Pearce doesn't take seriously the fact that Miz is complaining to him about having no protection, right? I get it, the Miz is a heel, and this is how the story goes. But he really cares about Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins, but nobody cares about the Miz. It's very strange. Adam Pearce sucks. Now it's time for the main event. It's Dirty Dom versus Damian Priest. We need to take a moment to realize how great Dirty Dom has been, right? This guy is killing it on all cylinders, right? He says he's going to go wrestle by himself. We have a match. Obviously, the entire story of the match is Dirty Dom has no chance whatsoever, right? Long story short, obviously, Judgment Day interferes. And then Damian Priest goes and starts beating the shit out of all these guys, except for Liv Morgan, of course, right? But in doing so, long story short, again, Damian is distracted. Dominic just rolls him up. 1, 2, 3. That's the end, right? That's the end. This was interesting. This was bittersweet. I want Dominic to win because I think he deserves a good win because his character work is keeping this faction alive. This faction, which is now like one of the worst factions ever, right? But after the match, so I guess this was like sweet and sweet because after the match, Damian Priest pretty much just destroys everybody. He's doing his finishers on all these jobbers, right? And this felt, if you ask me, this just felt like it's over now. You know, like, what's the point of Judgment Day? Ever since they betrayed Damian Priest, it's been all downhill, right? Finn Balor and JD McDonough are basically the worst tag team of all time. Like, they are the worst tag team champions of all time. And it's not even close. Carlito is basically retarded. Like, he's just like this moron who walks around and says, that's cool, or that's not cool. What, that's not cool. Like, that's all he does. He's like, I don't even know how you can, like, do this job and not want to, like, quit every day, you know? Then you've got Raquel Rodriguez, who's basically just there until her contract runs out, because this girl's never drawn a dime. It didn't work out. She's not like a massive star. They thought she was going to be this huge star with the Latinas, but nobody gave a fuck because she has the personality of a fucking towel. But anyways, so she sucks too. Liv Morgan is only interesting when she's feuding with Rhea Ripley, who wasn't there. And obviously Dominic is the breakout star, you know, aside from Damian Priest. But Damian Priest, as far as I'm concerned today, he completely buried, and in its entirety, this entire faction. He just buried them completely, right? So overall, this show gets a solid 2 out of 10 because I don't even know why. It honestly gets a 0 out of 10 because everything that I saw I didn't like, number one. And number two, except for Dominic, of course. But number two, a lot of people that should be here weren't here, right? I get it. I understand now. I've gotten used to the fact that the champions just don't show up on Raw or SmackDown. They just don't do anything. Like, the champions are just figureheads only for pay-per-views. So I get that, right? I understand Triple H sucks, and he's pretty much doing the Dana White business model, where on free TV, you know, you get like people that you've never heard of before that you're never gonna hear from again on UFC, and at the pay-per-views, you get your Cody Rhodeses and your, you know, fucking John Joneses once every couple of years. You understand what I'm getting at. But nevertheless, cucks, the point stands. And the idea is that the true problem with wrestling is that, number one, nobody wrestles, and two, it's not just the champions, right? Where the fuck is Drew McIntyre? It's been like a month. You know? Fucking dust yourself off and come back, motherfucker. What is this? Oh, I lost to CM Punk. I don't know who I am anymore. What is this? Just fucking come back. You know, this almost never happened. Mick Foley would get thrown through like a motherfucks. Like, Mick Foley was thrown outside, right, from the top of the cage onto a table, right? He came back. He climbed up. Then he was choke slammed through the cell onto the ring, and then he was tombstoned, I think, as well, and he got pinned. And he still came in later in the night to interfere in the main event. Are you fucking insane? And like Drew McIntyre's like, oh, I couldn't handle it anymore. I took a GTS. Like, they all come off looking like massive pussies, and I don't like it at all. So with that being said, this Raw gets a solid 0 out of 10 up in this bitch. So that's what I gotta say about that, motherfuckers.